Jingle bells ringing.
Hi everybody, welcome back. If the title didn't already give it away, today we are doing DIY Christmas decks. I can't wait. Let's start with this first project, which is something that I've wanted to make for a long time. I wanted some stockings that I could keep for years and years and years. So I've been saving some of this fabric for ages, and I finally decided to put it to use on these contrasting pattern stockings. They're very easy to make. I whipped them up in about an hour. So let me show you how I did it.
So let's get started. First, you're going to need a pattern for your stocking, and in true Hermione fashion, I did eyeball this, so I'm going to do my best to explain what I did here. For the stocking shape itself, I just drew this onto a piece of paper. You could draw around another stocking or find a template online. And then for the contrasting rolled over piece, I cut a long rectangle, which I put on screen the dimensions so you can make it fit your stocking. For the body of the stocking, we have two pieces of this gingham fabric, which I'm sewing right sides together. I'm taking a lot of care when I go around the foot of the stocking because of that curve. It's a little bit tricky, but just be patient when you're sewing this. As you can see, I've got my helper with me today, who is not being very helpful at all. I did roll over and hem the top of the stocking. This isn't super important because we're going to cover it anyway. I just wanted a really neat finish. Once I was done, I turned it inside out, and this is the stocking body. Now onto the rolled over piece, which I'm taking my large rectangle for, and I'm folding this over because I want this doubled up so that it's extra thick. I folded this right sides together, and then I sewed down two of the long sides, leaving one open so that we could easily turn it inside out, and then you're left with just a very long rectangle that you have to close the end of. So here I am closing the end, and this is going to be the roll over piece. I took everything to the ironing board to make sure I pressed all of the seams nice and carefully. This really does make a difference to the final result. And with the seams pressed, all I had left to do was add my contrasting piece to the top by just sewing a straight stitch all the way around the opening of the stocking. Oh, and how could I forget? We have to make a loop for these stockings, so I'm using the same fabric as the body of the stocking. I took a tiny scrap, folded it in half, sewed a line all the way down the length of it, and turned it inside out. I was then able to hand stitch this into the stocking, which I did because I didn't want to throw this through the sewing machine again. I thought it'd be neater to hand stitch. If you don't have a sewing machine, you could totally hand stitch this whole project. It just might take a little longer, but I think it would look just as good.
And this is how the stockings turned out. I love them so much. I'm really pleased. I think they look super professional actually, so quite surprised by that. Gotta pat myself on the back. And I adore them because I know I'm gonna keep them forever and they'll come out every single Christmas. Moving on to our next project, these fairy lights. I'm so excited about these because I'm actually recreating something that I saw in a store that I loved, but I was a little bit off put by the price tag, and I thought I could probably make these and show you guys how. And the best part is they're actually so easy and inexpensive. So let's jump in.
For this project, we're going to use a set of Firefly fairy lights, and I've picked up loads of bits and bobs. These are from the charity shop. These are bits that I've had in my craft supply stash for a while. We're using shells, beads, mother of pearl sequins, all kinds of things to make these fairy lights stand out. There are a few different ways that you can do this. I found that the easiest thing to do was to unravel a little bit of wire on the lights and then make a point with the wire to fit one of the sequins or beads through, and then I just twisted the wire back up. It was really that easy. But if you're worried that this isn't going to be super secure, I have another method for you that worked just as well. I attached some of the pieces with jump rings because for some reason I have so many of these lying around. I thought I would put them to good use, and this worked really well. It's a bit fiddly and a tiny bit time consuming, but it holds really well, so I preferred this method in the long run. This project took me a couple of hours, but it was really fun to work on, and I think this would be the perfect project to do while you've got a movie playing in the background. It's very relaxing, and the end result is so cool. It was totally worth the time I spent doing it.
This is how the fairy lights turned out. I love these so much. Perfect for Christmas, but actually I think perfect for all year round. I've managed to sneak these into the bedroom already as they're not too Christmassy, but I do think they would be perfect for your Christmas mantle. Now we have to move on to the next DIY. Let me show you how I made these decorations, which literally cost pennies to make, and they are very, very easy to reproduce. So let's jump in.
For this project, all you're going to need is some wire and some beads. I had this wire hanging around, but you can pick it up from like Poundland or somewhere. And then the beads I picked up for 50 pence per bag at the charity shop. So this is a very affordable craft. I closed one end of my wire and then went ahead and added all of my beads. This was very therapeutic. You should have something that looks a bit like this by the end. Close the other end of your wire as tightly as you can, and then we're going to fold this piece in half to create the bow shape. I'm pinching this at around the middle point, and then I'm pulling the top into this bow shape. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. If not, don't worry, I have another one to show you in a minute. Again, fold this piece in half, pinch it together around the midpoint section or 2/3 of the way down, wherever you want to really, to make the perfect bow shape, and then just fold the top over to create two bows. I'm then taking the bows individually and spinning them around to make sure they're nice and tight. I finessed these a little bit more off camera to make them look really nice, and I added 2 pieces of ribbon so that we could hang them on the tree.
Moving on, let's talk about tree skirts, because I put up the fake Christmas tree that we have had for about 15 years now, which is the Christmas tree that I put up before we get the real one, because I'm gonna get a real one, but I have to wait for December for that to happen. But the thing about artificial Christmas trees is that they can look a little bit ugly, particularly around the base. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do this year. I wanted to make a Christmas tree skirt, and here is how I did it.
Okay, this one is quite the project, so let me show you what I did. I took an old duvet cover, because that was the biggest piece of fabric I could find, and I cut it to size. The size of your tree skirt is going to vary depending on the size of your tree, but I'm going to put my dimensions on the screen in case that helps. Ours is a 6-foot tree, so perhaps you want to make one of the same size. So I have cut this piece of gingham fabric. It's 140 by 140 centimeters, and I folded it into quarters. So this is my middle point. This is where the Christmas tree is going to go. And now I just have to lay it flat and cut my curve around the edge and in the middle. I have some extra scraps, so I'm hoping I have enough to make this into a ruffly tree skirt. We will see if this is enough. If this is not a ruffle tree skirt at the end, this is why. I'm nervous to cut it. Let's see if we can make it the perfect circle. Cut the perfect circle. I'm going to use this as my anchor point. I've tied a piece of string to the end of my pen, and I'm going to tie it to here as well. I hope this works. I really do. So my lamp is going to sit in the corner here where all of the points meet. This will act as the base, and then we're going to use the string and the pen to draw 1/4 of a circle all the way around. This method worked out surprisingly well. I had to repeat this for the inside where we're going to have the hole for the Christmas tree base, and then all I had to do was cut the fabric. Now we need to cut from the center hole all the way out to the edge just once. I'm going to line it up as nicely as I can with the gingham. Now to cut the ruffles, in an ideal world you would have a length of fabric that is 3 times the circumference of your tree skirt. I didn't have quite this much, but it still worked out really well. I'm cutting these pieces along the line of the gingham, which really helped, but they were 16 centimeters wide each. Because they were scrap pieces, I did have to sew them all together to make one continuous line, but this is no problem. You shouldn't really notice this by the time you've finished your tree skirt. Now it's time to make the ruffle, and I have a hack for that. Fold your fabric in half with the right sides facing out, and we're going to sew along the open edge. For this method, you want to set your tension as high as it can go. Straight stitch, and with a length of 4. While you're sewing, you also want to pull the thread quite tightly up here to give it a little bit more tension on the top. And then you have a ruffle. I've got about 6 more meters to do, but it's a good start. Unfortunately, now is the time-consuming part of making meters and meters and meters of ruffles. With my ruffles complete, I was finally able to focus on the main body of the tree skirt. So the first thing I did was hem all the way down the openings on the inside and then all the way around the skirt itself. This is a little bit tricky because it's not a straight line, but if you take your time, it should go really well. To attach the ruffle, I'm taking the tree skirt with the right sides facing up and I'm adding the ruffle facing down, and I'm just going to hem all the way along the edge. This part's pretty tricky where I'm trying to match up the seams and go in a circle, but just take your time with it and make sure that the new line that you're sewing is next to the line on the ruffles, because you don't want to see that on the other side. Now it's time to finally cover up this horrible tree base with this cute new ruffly tree skirt.
This is how the tree skirt turned out. Really pleased with this one because it makes such a difference to the space. It covers that ugly base that was really not looking very festive at all. And I think it's a lovely backdrop for all the presents that you're going to wrap this year, which I will have a video all about coming out in a couple of weeks, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. Moving on, we have a project that's going to turn any boring, dull, old wreath into something a little bit more magical in under about 10 minutes.
This project was just a little bit of fun, and it was a great way to upcycle an old wreath that I had lying around. I have all of these velvet ribbons and I didn't know what to do with them, so I decided to make bows to add into this wreath. I started by deciding how long I wanted the bows to be, and then when I did that, I was able to take one piece of the ribbon and make that into a template so I could cut all of the rest in different colors. Here is all the ribbon that we're working with, and we're going to make some bows that look a little bit like this with a wire attachment on the back, so let me show you how. I'm going to cut about 10 to 15 centimeters worth of wire. Doesn't have to be exact. And what we're going to do here, we're going to take our ribbon like this, fold it in half, with the right sides facing outwards. We're going to create a loop at the top, a third of the way down, maybe a bit more. You're going to pull that loop in like so, and there you have your bow shape. I'm going to try and get them a little bit more flat at the top, like so. To make this easier, I am going to put a dot of hot glue here and here, because it dries very fast and it's going to be a little tricky otherwise. 1 and 2. Now I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to wrap it around from the front to the back here, and I'm going to push it tightly and then twist a few times. We have it like that. And lastly, we're going to take an extra piece of scrap fabric and we're going to put it over in the middle. So I'm going to secure this with a dab of hot glue at the front and then put it around the side. Make sure your ties are going to go off to one side without distorting the front of the bow. You can wrap it once, but I'm going to do it twice for extra support.
There's a rumor spreading all over town.
Snip the end off. Now we can pin this to our wreath. Now we have to do something about this old battered wreath, so I'm simply just taking out all of these berries and pine cones. Some of these just fell out. This wreath was begging for an upgrade. And with an empty wreath, all I had to do was add my bows. So I'm just taking those pieces of wire, pushing it through the wreath. And I'm not going to redo that, and I'm twisting it around the back to close the bows off. It's that simple. Just have to do that like 10 or 20 times and you should have a cute little wreath covered in bows.
This is the bow wreath. I think it's looking really good. I do think it needs a few more bows. Now that I'm looking at the footage, perhaps I'm going to add in a couple more to make it really like kitsch and ridiculous. And last but not least, I have this easy project that would be perfect if you have kids or if you're just looking for something to do that will take your mind off of scrolling on your phone in the evenings. This is going to make pipe cleaners cool again. This is a pipe cleaner chain and it won't take you very long at all.
Finally, we're on the home stretch. This is the last project and it is the easiest. I don't know if we can even call this a DIY, but it is a fun little project. All you're going to do is take your silver pipe cleaners, cut them in half, and with one of those pieces, fold it gently in half to create this kind of chain shape, which I'm closing at the end by twisting the ends quite tightly. I also like to make them a little bit square, so I used my fingers to do this. And then I just kept adding chains onto the previous chain. I kept going and going and going. Honestly, this took me about 10 minutes. 10 minutes to make, hours to film, but it was quite the fun project. I think this would be really fun to do with your friends or with kids or whatever. As this project is so simple, I'm gonna wrap it up here, but let me know if you make this one yourself, because I think this one is just the most simple of the bunch. Is really fun to do.
And here it is, the pipe cleaner chain, fully complete. Literally takes about 5 minutes, but I think it looks really cool and it gives those kind of nostalgic vibes that Christmas has been missing for a very long time. If you make any of these DIYs, I would love to hear from you. Please drop me a comment below. In fact, let me know what you're planning on doing for this Christmas. I'd love to hear from you. I love Christmas. I love Christmas so much. I'm also doing a bunch of projects on short form, so that's going to be on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube Shorts. You might have seen some of these projects already, but I'm doing lots of festive things over there, so do come over and find me on all the other platforms if you want to see more. And with that, I'm going to leave you guys there. I will see you guys next time. Take care, happy Christmas, and I'll see you soon. Bye.